So another participant, and this is kind of it's a two parts question. So I'll read them both and then we'll go back to the first part. But when we live in a community that is so predominantly white, how do we push our comfort zone? How do we move out of our racial comfort zone while being respectful of others and not tokenizing them? So that's the first part of the question. And the second part is, I want to understand more where this fear of rejection comes from and why it has held me back from reaching out to other individuals in my community who are Black. So maybe we'll start with the how do we push our comfort zone and then get into the more detailed second part of that question.
Yeah. So from my personal experience, as I've been intentional in trying to learn more about the lived experiences of people of color or people whose cultural norms might be a little different from mine, going into spaces where authentic relationships can be developed, not with the idea or the intent that I'm expecting someone to educate me or expecting someone to do anything for me, more so going into what can I, like, how can I learn from from this shared experience being together? So, for example, maybe going to a church, a predominantly Black church, to worship on occasion, or going into spaces where I can can participate in activities alongside people who of color, where I'm not doing for them, I'm not expecting them to teach me. We're just working on a common goal or a shared goal together. And then there are spaces where we can come together and intentionally say, we want to develop relationships. We want to get to know each other on an even playing field. What can we do? Share meals together. Go watch a movie together and talk about it afterwards, what our reaction was. But the key is that we're not expecting someone to educate us. We're not doing it because we want to be able to claim we have a Black friend or a Asian friend or a Hispanic or Latinx friend. We want to broaden our horizons and develop relationships with people because they're God's people, that we're creating God's image, and all of our lives are enhanced because of those relationships. So it's just placing yourself in spaces where you have an opportunity to have interactions with people. And then after some work's been done, after the beginning of some relationships, then feel out. Would it be helpful for us to have a conversation? Are you open to having a conversation about our differences, about and about our commonalities? And if there's an openness on both sides to enter into that with humility, they can be really fruitful conversations.
Absolutely. I think that's so well said. And I don't really have much to add to that, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to just have that historical context, because you use the term intentionality and finding spaces. And it's so true. Like, we have to be intentional about that because we are so segregated by race still in our society. Our neighborhoods, our churches, where we go for coffee, our schools. So we do have to be, like, there's that reality that we have to be intentional, right? We have to go out of our comfort zones, if you will, out of our neighborhoods and our churches to experience that. And I also love how you said that it's not with an expectation, but it's more of a recognition that I'm missing out on the fullness of life if I'm not putting myself in places where I can meet others with different experiences than mine, because I have something to learn. I have an opportunity to grow. So not a charity mindset, but definitely a collective, collaborative, connective and collaborative mindset. So I love how you put that.
Yeah, that word, that cultural humility, that recognition that we always can learn from people whose experiences have been different from our own, not with let me sit down and not do my own work and let you teach me. That's
Right.
not what I'm talking about at all. But in that, I don't have, I don't, my experiences, my way of doing things is not the best way, is not the only way.
Mhm.
And I can learn by how other people live their lives. I can benefit from that.
Mhm.
And we mutually, we all benefit from that. I love that
Yeah.
Desmond Tutu talked about that that language is the word Ubuntu, where I am
Mm.
because we are, that
Yes.
we all of us are, our lives are enhanced when we interact, when we weave our lives together.
I love that. Ooh, a nice little bow. I love that. Now, did we answer the second part or do we need to revisit that one?
Well, the
I
fear
want,
of
yeah,
rejection might be
yeah.
something to think
Okay.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have a thought on that and I'm really curious your perspective too. Um, but I think, and this, I'm trying not to get too philosophical, but when I think about, I rewind all the way back to um, European colonization and the creation of race. It was created at a time where Europeans were experiencing colonial expansion, and they created this hierarchy of who was right, who was pure, who was more intelligent, and that was when the creation of whiteness started, right?
Right.
So I think that fast forward to now, and we talk about one of the characteristics of white supremacy culture is perfectionism.
Yeah.
But fast forward to now, I feel like that is within the blood and the DNA of those of European descent today. Whether it's a conscious thing or it's really, really deep in the layers of our unconsciousness, but there is this consciousness of white as perfection. And so I think whenever there is a threat to that perfection, it releases feelings and emotions of fear and anger and guilt and maybe even shame.
Right.
So I really think that that's where it comes from. So the solution to that is really understanding one's whiteness, understanding where they are along their racial development, identity development journey, and understanding what spiritual practices that they can invest in to really help them dig deeper and to heal from that.